It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable, custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and Apple. Over 25 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with a wonderful lady from the Boston, Massachusetts area. She's a psychotherapist and also runs progressivewellness.com. It also deals with a number of things. She specializes in OCD, eating disorders, anxiety disorders, stress-related issues, also cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical, also current issues. And she also studied at McLean Hospital, one of the top-ranked psychiatric hospitals in the country, affiliated with Harvard. And basically, once you get to know her, she can help your problems more than anything else just by listening. And, cares about a great lot of people as well, too. And live, ladies and gentlemen, from Boston and having a little cup of tea, ladies and gentlemen, Angela Ficken. Angela, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for that really nice introduction, too.
Well, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Love talking to great people like you. So you're a psychotherapist out of Boston, and you have a website called progressivewellnessllc.com, and you've also done stress management resource, positive thinking, and beating stress and anxiety, which many are experiencing today due to COVID. You also stay at McLean Hospital, one of the top-ranked psychiatric hospitals in the country, affiliated with Harvard. And you also have studied on a number of behavioral issues as well, too. And before we get to all that, tell us how you got first started.
Yeah, so I guess just to piggyback on that, I got my start at McLean Hospital. So I really learned right out of undergrad from the best people in the country who were doing research and practicing anxiety and anxiety disorders. And from there, my career just kind of progressed onward, where I stayed for many years at McLean, went to graduate school, came back, and from there decided to leave and go to Harvard, where I was a primary therapist for undergrad and graduate students. And there I actually really fell in love with treating people who were struggling with stress and anxiety, because as we know in college, it's really like an emotionally vulnerable stage. So I was really able to see these young kids come in and really trying to find their way through, who are they in their life, but then also get drop kicked in this pressure cooker of an environment. So all the skills and strategies I learned from my time and training at McLean, I was really able to put into practice at Harvard. And then also had a private practice on the side, a small one. And my husband had said, after years at Harvard, he said, okay, you're burning the candle at both ends. You have to pick one. And I had always dreamed of being full-time in private practice, so I made the leap. And after a year or two of doing that, what I was hearing back from people in my private practice was that the skills and strategies I was teaching them were transformative, which is wonderful. They were getting better. They were noticing improvement in just a handful of sessions, but that it also took them months or years to find me. And Boston's not that big, right. But through research of their own or going through different therapists, it took them a while to find me. And that's when I kind of jumped into the entrepreneurial world of, okay, how do I take what I teach and kind of try to help as many people as I can. And so that's where I am today.
Wow, that is amazing. Of course, you also are trained in obsessive compulsive disorder, eating disorders, mood and anxiety management, life transitions, college and graduate student mental health, just like it did with Harvard students, relationship, work, and life stress. And maybe tell about a little about that and what other services do you also provide?
Yeah, so my primary focus is how do I help people who are struggling with anxiety and stress, and that is like a big umbrella. So you mentioned a few. One is obsessive compulsive disorder, which is an anxiety disorder. Eating disorders, eating concerns, which can feel a bit obsessive or compulsive and have kind of ritualistic behaviors. And then people who are going through life transitions, certainly millions of us are going through transitions right now, trying to figure out what our next move is, and that naturally brings stress. So a lot of what I do is really focusing on what are the best skills for each individual that we can really like build their toolbox. So whatever stress you come in with, you're going to leave with the best tools that are for you to manage the stress that you're dealing with. So you can, no matter what you go through in your life, whether it's trying to manage self-doubt, get rid of and break up with negative thoughts, stress with work or family, all of that are skills that I teach.
Mm-hmm. You also ran off some of the things with that are the most common when it comes to, say, stress, OCD, eating disorders, stress-related issues, your work transition, everything else. What are some of the other common forms of stress, and what is considered like the most challenging or rare forms of disorders?
Yeah, so I think for right now, like the most challenging, I think, is just managing through this pandemic, right? I think what I'm hearing a lot in my practice is the uncertainty of what life is bringing. And the interesting thing about that is that most things are uncertain, but when we're so busy moving through our life, working, getting the kids places, shuffling ourselves places, just going through the daily grind, we're not aware of all that is uncertain. And what this pandemic did is kind of it's shown a spotlight on lots of things in our life are uncertain, right? Our own health, jobs, where we're going to live, our plans have just been upended by this. So a lot of people are kind of facing this uncertainty, and that's bringing stress. So I think that's kind of the major piece I'm seeing currently. Mm-hmm. And then to answer your question, kind of what's the most challenging in terms of anxiety that I work with, I mean, they all have their different, I guess, parts, because if it's really interfering with somebody's life, that's severe. But I think the most challenging is probably in the obsessive compulsive disorder realm, because it's a really high octane anxiety where someone is really afraid of, it could be intrusive thoughts, it could be contamination, it could be anything. And that fear is causing them so much distress that it makes it so difficult to engage in life. And the only way through that is to face your fears. So anybody coming in for OCD treatment, I give a lot of credit, and they're so courageous, because in order to get better, they have to face their fears. So I think that's one of the most challenging, and it can be the most rewarding too, because when you see them get better and they get better, you're part of that journey.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like it, too. We'll talk about some of the ways that you accomplish in terms of strategies and more. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com. Powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, over 25 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with psychotherapist and the owner of ProgressiveWellness.com, Angela Ficken from the Boston area here on the Mike Wagner Show. Talked about some of the most common disorders, stress, and everything else under the sun. And we're going to talk about using some strategies to combat all the problems. And you specialize in cognitive behavioral therapy, which is CBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT, supportive psychotherapy, and exposure and response prevention, which is ERP. And, tell us about some of the strategies and explain in detail what they are, especially the CBT and the DBT.
Sure. So I know there's like so many names. So cognitive behavioral therapy, in a nutshell, is learning how to manage our negative thoughts. So lots of us can feel at times self-doubt. Sometimes when we're anxious, or stressed, we're thinking negatively about ourselves, like, oh, I'm so socially awkward, or, oh, I'm incompetent. And because we have those thoughts, it evokes a strong feeling like anxiety or stress, or even frustration. And we can get into this spin cycle that, like, if we feel anxious, we're going to think anxious thoughts, which then fuel our feeling of anxiety. And cognitive therapy says just because you think or believe something doesn't mean that it's true. But when it feels true, how do I know it's not true? And so it is a set of strategies that helps you separate fact from fiction with your thinking. Mm-hmm. There are different perspectives to the same situation. And instead of allowing your anxiety or stress to dictate your view, it actually retrains your brain to see a different, more realistic perspective and actually feel better. And it works. So that is CBT in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. And then dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, is essentially how do we, like, these are tangible coping strategies, so action-oriented coping strategies we use to manage challenging emotions instead of the emotions dictating our behavior. So if I'm feeling angry and I want to, at a coworker, and my emotion says, it's a good idea, Angela, you should send your coworker an angry email. So I send it and I press send, and for 30 seconds I feel like, oh, I used my voice, I'm good. And then a minute later it's like, oh God, what did I just do? So then you have to clean up the mess that your anger created. And DBT says, okay, before you even write the email, just notice how you're feeling angry. And here are some strategies to manage your anger. So then you can actually make a wise-minded decision, which might be press pause on that email, maybe go up to your coworker and have a different type of discussion, rather than the knee-jerk reaction of letting that emotion dictate your behavior. So those two therapies are like the gold standards for treating stress and anxiety. Mm-hmm. One is really thought-based skills of how do I think myself to feeling better? How do I retrain my brain to not experience anxiety in the way that it has? And then dialectical behavioral therapy is let's work on action-oriented self-care skills to manage those challenging emotions.
That's interesting. So what I'm gathering out of this thing with the CBT, it's more about thoughts, emotions, and feelings, and dialectical is more about thinking and using logic and putting it to action.
Yes, that's a great way to think about it, yes.
Yes, that is amazing. I looked at it and I thought, what is that exactly? I'm glad you cleared that up. There's also supportive psychotherapy and exposure and responsive prevention, which is ERP, and you can tell us about those two.
Yeah, so ERP is really specific for obsessive compulsive disorder. So that is, I think about cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy as the coping skills, like the armor before you go into battle. And the battle is the exposure. It is the time when we really think about how are we going to get you, someone who's facing OCD, to face their fears in a thoughtful, methodical way. And ERP is that battle. It is coming up with almost like a ladder of how to slowly start facing your fears. So each little rung you step up is getting you closer to the biggest kind of fear, whatever that might be. So it's a really well thought out process. But it is the time when people step up and are feeling somewhat ready to face their fears. So exposure and response prevention is essentially exposing yourself to what you're afraid of and just sitting with it until it no longer makes you afraid.
Let's just take a situation. I hear a lot that people are afraid of water, and how do you overcome that? And let's apply to the exposure and responsive profession. Let's see, I'm afraid of water when it comes to being in a pool or a bathtub or whatever. Like let's say for example a pool.
Okay. So if someone is afraid of being in a pool and they really want to be in a pool, then one strategy would be working with them in terms of what their own personal hierarchy might be. So what about just getting close to a pool and sitting on a lawn chair and just watching people swim and seeing if that feels okay? And then once that feels okay, it's like, okay, could you get a little closer and then maybe put your feet in the pool? And I'll put my feet in the pool with you too. And then you just get used to that. And then maybe you go down each step, and as each step you get more and more comfortable. And this could be days or weeks, right? This isn't just happens in a day, but you get the person comfortable with each step. And by the time, you're at the top ladder, top of the rung, they're in the pool. But they work through that each step, getting closer and closer to the end goal. So that's how you kind of break it up into steps.
That is interesting, and it can apply to anything, like if they're afraid of cats or they're afraid of spaghetti or they're afraid of a certain person, and this will all apply. It's like you take it in baby steps.
Yes.
That is amazing, and I'm going to have to remember that. And it was also supportive psychotherapy, and I'm not sure if you've explained that one, and you just tell a little bit about that one.
Oh, sure. So last is, supportive psychotherapy, which is essentially getting curious with what brings someone in. And we all carry histories, experiences, and our history and our experiences influence our present. So if someone's coming in and they're feeling anxious or stressed, part of it is really doing some exploratory work. Where do you think that comes from? Why do you think you feel that way? Who in your life also felt that way that maybe modeled that for you? So it's really doing some more process therapy that kind of helps us figure out why someone is the way they are. And then all the skills we just talked about, kind of the skill strategies, are ways that people can engage in kind of life-changing strategies to feel better.
Mm-hmm. And that's amazing, too. We'll talk about the things you specialize in: stress management resource, positive thinking, beating stress, anxiety, and also you have a book out as well, too, Stress Busting Guide. We'll talk about that. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with Angela Ficken, psychotherapist and the owner of ProgressiveWellness.com here on the Mike Wagner Show, talking about the various eating disorders, stress, and everything that's going on. We talked about the different therapies. I learned a lot. And also, you also specialize in stress management resource, also positive thinking, and also the beating stress and anxiety. And they seem to break into courses and books. And just tell us about those.
Sure. So my most recent that I just completed is the Stress Busters Guide. And I actually finished it, I think, in February, right before, of course, the pandemic happened. And I really am excited about this package because it's, I think, short and fun. So it comes with 75 coping skills, along with a fun mindfulness scavenger hunt, because a lot of us do have a hard time being in the present moment. I thought I'd keep it fun and do it through a scavenger hunt. And then I also created an a printable calendar that is tailor-made to help people use the skills and kind of structure their day, but also be mindful of what skills they want to practice and be mindful of making sure that they incorporate that into their day. So I just completed the Stress Busters Guide a few months ago. And then on top of that, I also did a quarantine skills kit, which is 15 skills people can try today to help manage stress through the quarantine. So I have that as well. Those are my latest two that I've completed. And then another that I also have is a cognitive behavioral therapy kind of tutorial workbook. And in it is actually the exact worksheet I have my clients use in my practice. So if you're struggling with negative thoughts, if you're really trying to find a way to manage them, I think this is a really nice introductory kind of workbook to give it a try. And then finally, like the big kahuna is my stress management course, which is 7 modules of soup to nuts, like if stress about work, family life, social, trying to combat negative thoughts, all of it. There's a bunch of skills in there. So I really do try to think about what are the best kind of skills, kits and courses that people would find most helpful and that I actually teach in my practice. So that's what I've been working on.
That is amazing. Where can we find all this?
So you can find it on my website, progresswellness.com. And on there is everything that I just mentioned. And I actually also have a monthly newsletter. And every month I write about either a strategy or a skill I'm talking a lot about in my practice or that I'm working on myself. So if anybody's interested, they can always sign up for my newsletters there as well.
That is fantastic. And of course, a couple of things as well, too, Angela. We're with Angela Ficken, psychotherapist and owner of progressivewellness.com here on the Mike Wagner Show. A few things here. You've been fantastic. Look forward to having you on back soon. And who do you consider your biggest influence in your career?
Oh, boy, that is a great question. I have several mentors in my life. Probably Denise Egan Stack, who was one of my first supervisors at McLean Hospital at the OCD Institute. She's an amazing teacher. And also Claire Carswell, Dr. Claire Carswell, has been a phenomenal mentor in my life, and she was a supervisor of mine for years. So I think without them, I wouldn't be where I am today for sure.
Mm-hmm. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
I think the best advice I can give is, I guess, 2 bits. One, just try to take it a day at a time. That's all we have. So I think if you can sliver it out and if you're feeling overwhelmed, just really think about what can you do today to take care of yourself and just put one foot in front of the other. Mm-hmm. And then the other is a mantra I've kind of lived by for the past 3 years is if it makes you anxious, do it anyway. And if you do that, I think in business or in your career, taking those risks can really meet with really wonderful opportunities. So those are 2 pieces that I will say.
And very good advice as well, too. We'll take the heart. And what are your upcoming plans for 2020 and beyond with Progressive Wellness?
So that's a great question. I actually do not know at the moment what the next step will be. I think I'm going to press pause and reassess and probably get a few more kind of skills kits out there, because what I'm hearing is that lots of people are liking those. So I want to probably do a few more of those coming out, I would say, by early fall.
That's fantastic. Once again, psychotherapist Angela Ficken, owner of ProgressiveWellness.com here on the Mike Wagner Show. Angela, big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Learned a lot from you. Looking forward to having you again soon. And once again, tell us about your upcoming projects, what's your website, how do people contact you, and where can people purchase your books and your materials?
Sure, great. So anybody can reach me through my website, which is ProgressWellness.com. And on there, you can send me an email, you can sign up for my newsletters, and you can also see my online shop, which includes the CBT workbook, the Stress Busters Guide, my stress management course. And like I said, you can reach me through email that way. And what's coming up next is probably a few other skills kits. I'm probably going to write one for college students, knowing that their life is kind of up in the air this fall, and they're probably going to need some extra padding. So that will be in the works. Keep a lookout through that. You can find me on Instagram as well and Facebook. And again, my website is ProgressWellness.com.
Fantastic, Angela. Big thank you for your time. You've been very fantastic. Learned a lot from you. Looking forward to having you again soon. Do us a favor. Keep this up to date. Love you to have back on sometime in 2020 and beyond. You've been great.
Thanks, Mike. I had fun.
Thanks for listening to The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.